Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, welcome. My name is Bia and I am genuinely passionate about makeup. Before we move on to the topic of today's video, I just wanted to remind you guys to subscribe and also to leave this video a like because, as I always say, it's an amazing way of supporting my channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk about my favorite complexion brushes and I'm going to show you how I use them to get the best use out of them. But just have in mind that what I'm saying is not either right or wrong. This is just my personal opinion, and if you seek for more content on this topic, you might find different answers, and that's okay. That's perfectly normal because everyone has their own experience when it comes to brushes, depending on their technique and what they feel like works the best. But this is just my honest opinion and what I always use and love. And by the way, I just wanted to say that I'm also going to do a part 2 of this video dedicated to eyeshadow brushes. But now it's time to move on to the video, so let's go. I've already applied primer before I started recording just because I feel like you don't need a brush to apply primer. I like to apply it with my hands and then press it against my skin just to make sure that I feel any large pores that need to be filled, and that's pretty much it for primer. And I've already concealed my dark circles just because not all of us need to do that, so I don't think that it was necessary to show you guys. It is time for foundation, and the one that I'm using is this one from NARS. It's the Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation. Since I had to mix it with a white pigment just to make it go a little bit lighter so that it perfectly matched my complexion, I am starting by putting some foundation on my face using just my finger. And usually when I do this, I always use the back of my hand. That's why it's so dirty by the end of the video. I know that I look crazy and I will for the next few seconds, but bear with me. So for foundation brushes, this is probably one of my favorites. It's the 104 from ZOEVA. And along with any type of brush, basically, there is an enormous variety of shapes and densities and sizes. But when it comes to applying foundation, I love going for more dense brushes. And the reason being is because less dense brushes tend to leave so many strikes from the bristles on your face that it just ends up not applying things evenly, and they are not as easy and as fast to apply. So yeah, I always go for really dense brushes. I have this one, and I also have another one. This is from Candice Bernice. It's even more dense. And the reason why I haven't been using it, it's because it's getting a little bit, broken. The bristles aren't even anymore, and to be honest, it's fair because it's really old and it used to be my everyday foundation brush. But you can pretty much see what I'm telling you. Like, I love really dense brushes. Like, you can see how dense this one is. I don't think the camera would show you if I had, but trust me, I don't have any bristles strikes on my face. And one thing that I really love about this kind of bigger brushes, this one is way bigger than the other one that I've shown you, is that this covers a lot of skin just at once. So if you're looking for something that is going to make your foundation application super fast, I would highly recommend this one. This one is pretty affordable. It wasn't even 20 euros. I'm not really sure how much it cost, but I know that the NYX one is also really good and I really want to try it as well. And by the way, I'm aware that there are flat brushes for foundation application, but I've had my makeup done by a makeup artist who decided to use one of those, and I noticed that it's not easy to apply. It doesn't blend the foundation really well. So even though there are a lot of foundation brushes and I know that there are a lot of people using them, I wouldn't recommend it myself, especially for beginners, because it's not really easy to work with, and overall I just like the finish of this kind of brushes better. To apply it, I just do some sort of a tapping and sliding motions. Now I'm using a sponge. This one is actually from Beauty Blender, and even though this is not a brush, I had to mention this one because it's kind of an investment because it's kind of expensive, especially because it's a sponge, but this is really good. Like, this is a must-have for me ever since the beginning when I started doing makeup. And if you have seen any of my videos, you know that I pretty much use this with any of my cream formulas. If it's not the only thing that I use, I'm still going over the product with this one. Like, for foundation, I love using this to apply foundation in the areas that I need more coverage, because I don't know how this little sponge works, but it blends the product, but it still keeps it in the place that you have applied it, so it allows you to have more coverage when you need it. Since this is way tinier, like you have the tiny tip on top and you know, it can squeeze it and stuff to adjust and fit the areas that you need. This allows me to apply the foundation with a lot more precision, so I use it, for instance, in my under eye area or next to the roots of my hair. And one thing that I love doing with the beauty blender, after applying the foundation all over my skin, I like to go over it with my beauty blender because this will help the makeup set really well and just overall guarantee that you have a really even application. Now moving on to concealer, I am still using one from NARS, and this is the Radiant Creamy Concealer. As usual, I am applying this in the areas that I really want to highlight. I am again using my beauty blender, this time to blend the concealer that I've applied, and I usually apply it directly with this tip that comes with the product. But anyways, I love to blend the concealer with the beauty blender because if I blend it with a brush, I feel like the coverage is kind of lost. It turns products like to a light coverage really easily. And as I've mentioned, when it comes to foundation, like the beauty blender blends it but keeps the product in place. It prevents it from moving away and just turn itself really light. And by the way, don't ever forget to damp your beauty blender. Like working with a dry beauty blender or, you know, just a beauty sponge can make your job a lot harder because it just absorbs all of the product, and I don't know, but I feel like it makes things really cakey, and that's not a finish that anyone looks for. One thing that I also want to tell you guys about this sponge is that if you are on a low budget or if you just don't want to have that many tools, the beauty blender is an amazing investment because as you can see, like you can use this for a ton of products. Before I move on and set the creamy formulas, I still want to apply creamy bronzers just because some of you might want to use this kind of product and this requires a completely different brush compared to the powder bronzer. So the one that I'm using is the same old one. I love this product. It's from Huda Beauty and it's their Tantour Contour and Bronzer Cream. I use this in the shade Light. As I have mentioned before, this goes a little bit dark, so if you're thinking about buying this one specifically, have that in mind. For this kind of formula, I love this brush. This one is from Real Techniques. It's the 401 and I feel like this brush is just completely amazing and perfect for this function, because as you can see, it's angled and I love angled brushes to blend any cream bronzer and even to apply the bronzer, but we will talk about it soon. But as you can see, it just perfectly fits the shape of the face and it's really dense, like you can see how thick it is. And also it's really small, so it kind of helps you like keeping the precision when you're trying to apply the product. Okay, so I'm going to start applying the product so that this video doesn't get too long. But anyways, I love this brush, and especially if you are on a budget, this is really affordable. I think it cost me 10 euros. As you can see, like as soon as it applies the product, it blends it really well. I love to apply it where my face would naturally have any shadows, and if you want a trick, you can do like the duck face, you know, the thing that was trending a few years ago. Like you do like this, and as you can see, like you have to apply it in here, and usually I bring the brush until my hairline. I'm sorry for the weird face, but I just want to show you how easy you can make this. I usually start by tapping the brush on my face and then I end up doing some sort of swiping motions, but not too much, because whenever I am applying a creamy formula on top of another creamy formula, I want to make sure that I'm gentle enough not to move the other formulas that I have applied. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Something that I also want to make sure that you are aware of is that when it comes to working with this brush and, you know, working with a dark shade on your face especially, you have to try to work little by little, because when you apply the bronzer, you are not really looking for blended all over your complexion, and this brush tends to pick a lot of product at a time, so you have to make sure that you pick not too much product. What I usually do is after picking the product with the brush, I do this in the back of my hand, so this leaves the excess product that I can even use later. And then when the product is evenly distributed along all of the bristles and I make sure that it doesn't have too much product, it's now ready to apply on my complexion. I also use this brush to apply some of the creamy bronzer in my jawline. And one thing that I like to do is do this with the brush just to make sure that both parts connect. And in the jawline, I usually do circular motions to help blend the product. Last but not least, I like to apply the creamy bronzer in the perimeter of my forehead. Before we move on to the next step and the next brush, I just want to say that I have been doing this lately. So I grab my sponge and I go over the edges of my bronzer and even on top of it, because I just feel like this really helps the bronzer look a lot more natural, like you're actually tan and that shade is naturally there. And also when you apply too much creamy bronzer or anything, this will also help you kind of fix that and absorb a little bit of the excess product that you have applied. Okay guys, just a quick break. I am obsessed with this eyeshadow that I've used on the lid. Like, it makes my look so bright and just alive. I just love it. But anyways, I didn't even tell you this. Shame on me, but I did my eye makeup on my Instagram and I left it on my highlights so that you can check it in case you want a tutorial of this look. And if you are a beginner, this is super easy and quick to do. I basically use 3 eyeshadows, 4, you know, just to create some depth next to the lashes, just to make them look more full and make this a little bit more intense. And yeah, that was it. And I only applied mascara. I didn't even apply falsies. So yeah, if you want to check it out, my Instagram is down below and you can just learn how I did this. It is time to set all of the creamy formulas that we have applied, and for that I'm using my KVD translucent powder. And when it comes to applying powder on your complexion, you really do need a brush. And when it comes to this type of brush, what I love using is really large, soft and fluffy, so not so dense brushes. And I'm going to show you a few examples and also recommend to you one from Real Techniques. If you look it up online, it's their powder brush and it's rounded and super fluffy. And the brushes that I personally have that I love using to apply the powder is, first of all, the one that I use pretty much in all of my videos, which is this one from PRIMARK. As you can see, it's super fluffy, it's round, it's super big, so it covers a lot of skin at once. And it just makes sure that I don't apply too much powder at a time, because when I do, my makeup ends up looking a little bit too cakey, and anyways, I just don't like it, so I always go for more fluffy brushes. I also was given this one. This is probably not for setting powder, and I haven't tried it, but it's also super fluffy and big. This is even more fluffy. I think I'm going to try it today. And yeah, that's it. I honestly don't have that many brushes, but anyways, I'm going to try to use this one because this is super fluffy and oh my god, it's so soft. This is from Douglas, by the way. It's one of their Christmas collections. I also want to buy the Real Techniques one because I know that it's really good and I am really curious to try it. Yeah, this is working really well. I feel like when it comes to powder brushes, you don't really need to go like and buy super expensive brushes because it's really easy, in my opinion, to find a good powder brush. I mean, this one from Primark was probably like €5 or something, and it works just fine. And it's kind of old, so shout outs to Primark because they made a brush that lasts really long. I just wish the clothes they sell would last the same time, but you know. Don't you ever forget to set your neck, especially when you're wearing, you know, like high neck tees and stuff, because if you don't set it, it will just probably transfer to your clothes and that's not cool. Before I set anything next to my under eye area, what I always do is to go in with my beauty blender just to blend any creases, because creamy formulas tend to crease easily. So once you apply the powder, you will be setting creases if you don't blend them first. To blend this area, I'm going with this one from Primark because this has a round tip, so it allows me to get where I want. Moving on to the second powder, I am taking Hola by Benefit, which is a matte bronzer. And to apply bronzer, I go one of two ways. If I've applied creamy bronzer, I'm not really interested in adding a lot more depth and color, so I usually go for my Japanese brush. This is rounded. This seems like a powder brush, but this is rounded and it's really fluffy, and I do this more like to set the creamy formula that I've applied, not really to help shape my face, not really to apply much pigment or anything, because I'm not building anything from scratch. But if you are just applying powder bronzer and nothing creamy that is already giving you some color, I usually go for this kind of brush. This is the 04 from Sephora, and as you can see, it's an angled brush. I love this brush because it's angled. It's like not super dense but not super fluffy. It's kind of a medium density, and it's also like a medium size. It's not too big. It allows you to have some precision, but also cover pretty much all of that area that you want to cover with bronzer. I also have this one right here. This is also from that collection, but it's a little bit bigger. So if you are just on the go and you just want to apply some bronzer, you can use this one, but I honestly prefer something a little bit smaller. And I also have this one from Morphe, which is even smaller. This was from one of their collections that had this kind of design, and I also use this one, but since this is a lot smaller, I usually use this on the sides of my nose. But anyways, for the sake of this video, and because if I had to pick one, I would pick something that, you know, has this kind of shape, I am going to use this one from Sephora. And yes, I am aware that this is not a bronzer brush, this is for blush, but I think that it works really well. And obviously, as I've told you in the intro, this is just my opinion. It's what I feel like works the best for me, so feel free to go on and try other brushes and see it just works better for you. I just want to give you some guidance if you are starting out and you're just completely lost. And by the way, I am applying this in the same places that I've applied my cream bronzer. By the way, I also like to apply some of this bronzer in here. I kind of draw a V just because this makes the neck look a little bit more longer and slim. But yeah, that's just an extra thing that if you want to do, you can always do. Guys, I have just realized that I completely forgot to bake my under eye area, and the reason why I noticed is because it started to crease a little bit. I'm just trying to blend any creasing. Now, with my beauty blender, I'm just applying some powder in here. This is something completely optional, to be honest, but I like to bake for the reason that I've just mentioned. I am also going to apply some of this powder on the bridge of my nose, and I'm still using my beauty blender. The only thing that I do is that I squeeze it so that I make sure that I'm only applying this on the bridge. While the bridge of my nose is baking, I am taking the Morphe angled brush that I've just shown you and some of my Hoola bronzer, and I'm going to swipe the brush along the sides of my nose. It's fine to apply this while it's baking because you're not really messing up the bridge of your nose because you don't want to apply any bronzer in there. And in case you have taken the powder way too far to the sides of the nose, this will just help you clean it up and overall just help you define the nose. So I gave it like 5 minutes to set and bake my under eye areas and the bridge of my nose, so I feel like now it's time to remove the powder. Just because I want you to feel super confident with your complexion, I am just going to quickly give you another tip. Basically, I am going to bake underneath the area where I want my contour to end, and for that I usually start in here and move towards the corner of my mouth. I'm just going to let it bake while I apply my blush. Moving on to blush brushes, this was actually the hardest brush for me to pick when I started doing my makeup, and I came to the conclusion that I'm not really that picky when it comes to blush brushes. The only thing that I really want them to have or to be like is I need them to be a little bit more fluffy, and I don't mind if they're angled, if they're round or anything, but I have chose these 3 just to show you guys. So this was the one that I used to apply my bronzer, the 04 from Sephora, and this is their blush brush, and this is angled, and as I've told you, it's like medium density. Then I have this one from Deluxe, the same collection, and this is more fluffy and still angled. And I feel like both of them work just fine, even though this applies a lot more pigment at a time, because with density, that's not issue, but that thing comes along. And then I have my Japanese brush. You have seen me use this one a lot of times. I love this because it's super fluffy and round. And by the way, one tip is that whenever I use these ones, like round brushes for blush application, I usually do like circular motions because I feel like this really blends everything and makes it look like your skin is already like rosy in there and stuff. I don't know, it just gives a super natural finish, but obviously it doesn't give you that much precision. And the reason being why I like this kind of brushes, you know, like less dense, a little bit more on the fluffy side, is because the blush is not supposed to be like super sharp and super precise. At least for me personally, I like it to be a little bit more diffused and blended with the rest of the complexion, so I end up looking more for like this kind of brushes. I'm going to use this one from Douglas because I haven't tried it, but I know that, you know, by the shape I'm going to like it, and by the softness, by the way. And the blush that I'm using is this one from NARS. This is in the shade Orgasm. And with angled brushes, I don't do the circular motions that I do with the rounded ones. I do some sort of tapping motions, but kind of dragging the product upwards towards the hairline, but in the same direction as I have applied the contour. But yeah, one thing that I clearly notice when I apply blush with this kind of angled brush that tends to, you know, be a little bit more thick is that it applies way more products than the Japanese brush. Now, just to show you how I would use this brush without speaking any more products, I'm just going to show you how I do this. As you can see, I do some sort of circular motions, and actually sometimes I even use both types of brushes. Even though I might not use this from the beginning, I like to do this just to make sure that everything is blended together. Okay, so enough baking. I'm just going to quickly remove this. And as you can see, there's a really harsh edge in there. I don't like it. So what I usually do is, using the same Primark brush, I kind of do some sort of circular motions and also like this, just to make sure that I blend it. And if I need to, I just go over with a little bit more bronzer to diffuse this line. One last note when it comes to blush brushes is that even though I've recommended you round and fluffy brushes, please don't mistake them for powder brushes, because not all round and fluffy brushes are good for blush. Some of them, like the Real Techniques one, is just too big. They actually have two, one for powder and one for blush. They are pretty much the same brush, but one is smaller than the other. And the reason being is that you want to still keep some precision when applying your blush. You don't want to drag your blush down to your contour or anything, so you should always look for something that is a little bit smaller, just to make sure that it fits your face and it allows you to apply the product where you want it to be. Now it is time to focus on the last type of brush that I want to show you guys, and that is highlighter brushes. I have two in here which are completely different. This is a fan brush and this is more of a blending brush, and across the last few years I know that there have been like many launches when it comes to highlighter brushes shapes and stuff, but what I would recommend to you 100%, because I know that you will be comfortable using it, you will feel like you're doing an amazing makeup look, is the blending brush. I love this kind of blending brushes. This is actually a complexion brush, not an eyeshadow brush. It's way bigger. I can actually show you to compare. This is an eyeshadow blending brush and this is the highlighter blending brush. You can use an eyeshadow one, but I like this one because it's bigger, and with the highlighter you want to cover, you know, like a little bit more room. Because this is super precise, it will make sure that you don't end up taking too much room of your face using the highlighter and you don't apply it in areas that you don't want to be applying it. And that's something that I feel like it might happen with a fan brush. You can go a little bit overboard with it and, you know, let it fall a little bit into your blush and contour and stuff. And also, as I'm going to show you, this brush helps you applying the highlighter and blend it at the same time, so that you don't end up having a white stripe on your face. And by the way, the highlighter that I'm using today is the Becca one. This is the Shimmering Skin Perfector in the shade Moonstone. If you are like me and pretty much most people, you like to apply highlighter in the inner corner and in the brow bone, and as you can pretty much imagine, this is way too big for that. So one brush that I also love and I would highly recommend to you is a pencil brush. I am showing you this. This is from KVD. This is one of their shade and light brushes, and this is the kind of tip that I'm talking about. And I also have another one, but I usually use it for eyeshadows, so I think it's still dirty from the last makeup look that I did. Yep, it is. And this is from ZOEVA. It's the 230. And this is also perfect to do this. But since I have two, one is for highlighter and the other one is for eyeshadows. Any pencil brush will be amazing to do this, because this is super tiny and it has an even tinier tip, so it helps you keeping the precision and still gets that highlighter where you want it. I am quickly going off camera just to finish my complexion, the eye makeup, and do my lips, and I will be right back. Hey guys, that is it for this video. I hope you liked it and that you found it really useful, because I know that in the beginning buying makeup brushes, it's really overwhelming and confusing because there are so many brushes that claim to be for the same thing and you just don't know what will work the best, and you just kind of want a friendly opinion. And I really hope that was it. But yeah, I hope to see you in my next video, which will most likely be a part 2 of this video, but this time for eyeshadow brushes. So yeah guys, that is it. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you like it and if you want to see more from me, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!